Hello, everyone. I'm Phil, the technical editor for Projector Reviews, and I am back for our second session of the day with BenQ. And one thing about BenQ is they are quickly becoming one of the leading projector manufacturers in North America. And it has a lot to do with their performance to value proposition. I have reviewed multiple BenQ projectors, and they have always punched above their weight class when it came to their picture quality. So I've done review projectors from $600, and I was really impressed with the picture. And if you look at their projectors like the HT3550, which we reviewed last year, we gave it a Hot Product Award for its performance, especially at its particular price point. So joining me from BenQ is Bob, and
Yes.
and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the great solutions that BenQ has to offer, and especially the fact that now they are offering some smart models and the importance of having a smarter projector. So, Bob, why don't you give me a little bit of a history about the company?
Well, BenQ has been around a long time. The company was an early adopter of DLP technology, and even back as far back as 2005, they focused on that platform to really rise quickly in the worldwide market. Took a lot longer to be able to drive the market share in North America on projectors. But during that time, we also worked with other products such as monitors and flat panels and other pieces of the classroom, for example, where you might have a projector now, but you also might have a interactive flat panel, or you might have a wireless presentation system. So in the last 4 or 5 years, BenQ's market share has grown quite a bit. In fact, last year we were the fastest growing 4K, if you look at just projectors with true 4K resolution. And last quarter, actually, I think we were #1 according to FutureSource in North America for 4K. So a lot of this has been built around technology building blocks. We used similar tech strategies in the monitor business, where if you want to buy a 24-inch totally color accurate monitor for $1,000, that seems really expensive, but it's half the price of the other monitors that are out there that are also that color accurate. Typically, you'll find that is going to be a BenQ monitor. We have 65 of the world's best photographers using it. And so what we're doing now is taking a lot of that learning from color accuracy, 4K resolution, HDR, all those things that the people that are creating content, we're putting it into this generation and the next generation of projectors to improve the image building block. And then at the same time, a lot of the software learning that we have from our interactive flat panels, specifically around the Android ecosystem, we're one of the fastest growing interactive 4K flat panel brands. That's now going into our projectors as well. So there's a lot of technology happening in the projector space, which a lot of companies see as a dead category. We see it as just the opposite. So while some people are getting out, we're making a lot more investments around these 3 technologies, basically 4K, color accuracy, and just all of the software that goes around it.
There's multiple solutions that BenQ offers. So whether you have that dark theater where you're more concerned with the black levels to get your contrast, and you still want to be bright, but black's your king, and black's in color accuracy, to someone who's trying to use it in a with some ambient light in a room, like maybe a living room or a den. Hardcore gamers have their own ideas of things. So the goal is to try to give the customer the things that they want. Now, I mentioned that I've always been very happy with the picture quality of the BenQ projectors. I've always thought they were a very, very good, especially where they compete. Like, you guys aren't in the $20,000 range. Like, I got King Kong back here. That's close to a $20,000 projector. But a lot of people, their budgets are about a tenth of that. And that's where you get into things such as your HT3550. So can you talk about some of these things? Most of your home theater solutions are 4K, correct?
Yes, and the #1 question that we get from customers, they're confused when they want 4K, because all the TVs sold today are all 4K, they're all UHD. And then the number one question is, well, there's a Pro UHD, and how's that better than the UHD? Is this something that I missed? And it turns out that that we have to explain that the BenQ projectors are built around the TI technology that does 8.3 million pixels. They're all addressable. And the best way I can describe it, the way it works is, if you were to pick a racing car engine, would you want a Bentley V12, a Chevy V8, or a Honda V6?
Yes.
Right? Most people would go with the V6, you can get 1,000 horsepower. And so what we've done is been able to take the DLP chips and put 8.3 million pixels on the screen. And we've done this over 4 years. And one of our high-end projectors, it's not $20,000, it's about half of that, but it's designed for that exclusive CEDIA channel. You know, one of the reviewers, of course, everybody has a different opinion, but he said it's the best projector we've ever seen. And part of that is the sharpness and the image quality of being able to have a true 4K. So the one behind you obviously is a true 4K. Some of our competitors that make LCDs have announced a true 4K, but they're in the $80,000 ranges. So BenQ has been working at trying to have an affordable 4K projector for every man. So Frisco Bible Church here, not too far from our office, just put 2 of these things up there on a 150-inch screen, and it costs them under $10,000 for the projectors for both.
So let's talk about this too, because a lot of times I hear there's because there's native 4K. There's something like the Sony that I have in front of me, and the JVC I have behind me that use a native 4096 by 2160 imagers, you know, to do it. Now, some companies will take a maybe a 2 megapixel imager and use a little bit of pixel shift to try to double that resolution. A DLP is completely different. Now it does not have 8.8 million, 8.3 million mirrors that are moving, but they're moving so fast, the number that they have, you can't differentiate it. And people go, well, it isn't true 4K. And I'm like, a DLP has a color wheel in it. It's only showing you one color at a time, but you're not looking at it, calling it a red projector or a blue projector or a green projector. The thing is spinning so fast that your brain stitches it together. So unless you have an ultra high speed camera, you can't see, you're not seeing all 3 colors, okay, at the same time. So if you can't differentiate the fact that purple is not purple, it's actually a wheel spinning really fast, and your brain is stitching together purple, how is your brain going to stitch together that thing's moving so fast that you're not seeing the resolution? So a lot of times, if I do these resolution tests, it becomes really difficult. Now, I could see a difference between a DLP resolution spinning 4K, 8K, reproducing 8K the way it does versus an E-shift projector. I can. But it gets really hard, especially when we start talking about good optics, to see the difference between a native panel and a DLP panel. So DLP gets pretty close. Now, I'm sure I know I can find some stuff, because I used to do it when I was at Sony. I could find some stuff. But the average person who's looking at it, it becomes, do I want to spend double for the difference? And that is where you're doing. So one is 5,000 for a starting to get into a native panel, and I can get a BenQ great looking DLP for $2,000. Some people, that difference in resolution may not be enough. It's there. And there's other reasons why you may want to buy it at, like horizontal and vertical lens shifts and anamorphic lenses and irises and things like that. But a lot of times it is not about the resolution. Okay. So that's something that we want to point out, because that drives me crazy. People go, well, it's not, you know, when we write an article and call a DLP projector a 4K panel projector, it's not 4K. You can't see the difference. So stop. Okay. So
and not all 4K projectors are the same, because just like an 8-cylinder engine isn't the same from one manufacturer to another, you know, with the turbocharge, like a Ford EcoBoost, right? So they've got some secret sauce that they've done. So we do some other things along with TI to be able to make it look pretty.
Exactly. And some people are better performing, make better performing DLPs than others. That's just the way it is. Sometimes you see
Mhm.
more rainbow. It all depends on the color wheel you're using. Whether you're using a color wheel, are you using an LED, are you using a laser? All that also has an impact over your overall picture quality and your contrast and everything else. And like I said, a lot of it can has to do with also the optics. If you have better optics, and a DLP may look better and could definitely look better than a native 4K projector with lesser optics. So all of this stuff has to be put together when it comes to performance. But the fact is, when we're talking 8 megapixels, or 8K, from 12 feet away or 14 feet away, you're splitting hairs. The one thing you aren't splitting, the one thing that you can't see, regardless of how far you're sitting from a projector, is its colors. So
Yes.
talk about some of the things that you guys do for color.
So I mentioned before, we launched in 2014 a monitor called the PG series, and it is designed for advertising agencies to make sure that if your hair color is a certain way, L'Oreal isn't going to not pay the ad because the hair color didn't match on the ad. So there's a whole ecosystem with that. That's developed our technology for color accuracy over time. So it's not only applied for monitors, it's now in our interactive flat panels, it's now in our Pantone certified flat panels. But the best gain was in projector color accuracy. So as we go into 4K and we get resolution that looks really good, we wanted to make sure that the colors looked really good so that you could have a BenQ monitor that was color accurate and a BenQ projector that was color accurate. The nice part here is with high brightness projectors, where probably our color accuracy was less than 100% in the past with lamps. With a laser, we can get almost home theater color accuracy. So now every BenQ projector specs color accuracy that uses a solid state light source. So we just announced a 6,000 lumen projector, 96% of Rec 709. So, you know, uh, in Texas here, we have a golf company, Hager. They make golf stacks, right? And they have 50 shades of gray and 50 shades of khaki. And if you go to their boardroom, there are all these different khakis and gray slacks all around the room. And you'd think, they all look the same, but that was one of the great test beds that we used early on to say, can you differentiate between khaki or skin tone or some other element that people really care about in this space? Because if you get that right, all the rest of it comes free. You get the Coca-Cola red, you get the Starbucks green, you get the Chicago Cubs blue. That's not oversaturated, not undersaturated, because our engineers, that drives them crazy if you try to oversaturate something to make it look
Yeah.
colorful, right? Or bright.
Yeah, but
So
every display has their little color mode, but sometimes you have to crank the colors to overcome ambient light. So most
yes.
companies, including BenQ, have modes that are accurate, designed for low lighting and stuff like that. But sometimes you would love it to be Chargers yellow, but during the day, you just want to see the Chargers. So
Yeah.
sometimes cranking it up a little bit and making the colors a little oversaturated or not as rich or not as accurate is okay to overcome when you're sitting around with your buddies drinking beer trying to watch the football game or the soccer match. So that's why you see those different things. Now, speaking of color, Tony asked, and this goes back to, like, you'll see single chip DLP and 3-chip DLP. The main difference is when you use a single chip, that single chip is responsible for reflecting all of those colors at you. So the wheel is spinning behind it, and it can have multiple segments. It can have a yellow, it can have a red, green, blue, yellow. It can have multiple green, two greens, two blues, two yellows, all these different segments. And as it spins, it gets to the red. The red goes to the mirrors. The mirror sends out the red. Next thing comes up is like a blue, and then the mirror changes to where the blue would be in the image and sends that out. And it's spinning so fast that red and that blue, you see it as a purple. Okay, so that's how a single chip works. A 3-chip, they're way more expensive because we're talking 3 chips. The box is way bigger. because we're talking about you need the space for 3 chips. The lens is way better, bigger, because that engine or that device that has all those chips get bigger. But now each mirror only has to focus on one color. One guy does the red, one guy does the blue, one guy does the green. So there's some benefits to that. There's no rainbow because there's no wheel. But like I said, that's more of a professional standard. BenQ, make me a 3-chip DLP projector at 20 grand. Bring it on. You'll be right up there fighting with the 2 King Kongs that are sitting in the room here. So was that a right way of explaining it, Bob? I want to make sure that I'm kind
Yes,
of on
that
track with
was.
that.
And generally, the 3-chip was originally designed for digital cinema.
Exactly.
To be able to reproduce all of the weird colors that George Lucas and James Cameron and Steven Spielberg wanted to be able to do. So we know that pretty well, and that's one of the advantages of our projectors, is that because we make colors the same way, it basically gives us the ability to match a lot of the subtleties on those, especially when you get into HDR.
Exactly. And when you go to those big like AMC Primes or those super high-end theaters, it's 3-chip LED DLP with 3 lasers.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
a red laser, a blue laser, a green laser, and you end up with stunning colors. You will see like some really good SXRD and LCOS based stuff in professional theaters and professional rooms from JVC and Sony. But a lot of times when you go to those big ones and you see those big Christie's and Barcodes, they're DLPs. They cost the price of a big BMW, or maybe a small house in Texas,
Yeah.
but they are DLP systems as well, right? What are you going to say,
Yep.
Bob?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and the trick is, because we have so many things in common with those projectors, and the chip is a chip. It's like Intel microprocessor that gets faster and faster and faster every year. So we can do more with the fixed amount of time. If you have 20, in a cinema, it's a certain amount of frames, right? 24 frames. Well, that's like an eternity between each frame for a
Exactly.
DLP. So that's where our engineers are really focused on trying to say, okay, what can we do with that time, and how do we make that picture look just like the Cinemark on the street?
Exactly.
Maybe we'll never get there, but that's what they're trying to do,
Yep.
and that's what
Yep.
we work with the directors when we do our HDR algorithms. When we introduced the 9060, that was the first one that we did, and then it's rolled into other ones. We basically had 15, 20 cinema directors worldwide working with us to be able to do the right tone mapping, to be able to have the iris in the right position, and because we use some of the strategy techniques in our gaming monitors. If you've ever seen a professional gamer play, 70% of them play behind a BenQ Zowie gaming monitor, and we develop these little tricks to be able to look under a train car and show a few more pixels where the bad guy is hiding than the competitor monitor. And so that process of lightening up a dark area without ruining it for the rest of it is something that we started working with different directors to try to develop our HDR model. So when you get a BenQ projector and it has HDR, we're not trying to emulate a TV. We're actually trying to emulate the cinema projector that costs 6 figures that's in the Cinemark, because they have some tricky HDR technology as well that's designed for a projector, that's designed for the editing room in the development of the movie itself, that they tune to say, okay, I want my blue this way because the emotion I'm trying to do. So those are the colors that are actually really tricky to find in a home theater system that we're trying to emulate with our HDR algorithm.
Exactly. And one thing I've noticed about your projectors is they all have the same overall feel and look and foundation when it comes to its performance. As you spend more money, you start adding those extra things that make it, picture looks good. You want to get a little darker? I got a dynamic iris. That costs money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The next thing is, you want horizontal and vertical lens shift. Well, that requires a bigger chassis. That costs money. You want it to be, okay, now you want it absolutely silent. Well, that makes the chassis even bigger. That costs a little bit more money. Oh, you want to extract every single drop of resolution from there, that requires better optics. Like if you look at a digital camera like I'm using compared to a webcam, that costs more money. But the overall foundation of the DLP chips that they're using, the brain of how it's all being done is the same. It's just all of those additional performance enhancements to give you a little bit of a sharper image, a little bit of a quieter thing, a little bit more install flexibility is the reason why the price keeps going up and up and up and up and up. So that's, but the overall, that's the reason why I like the HT3550 so much is it has, if I don't need to all the lens shift capabilities and I really don't care, it's not absolutely silent, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting 14 feet away from a 100-inch screen. I may not need that extra optics that you would find on a guy like this. I can get a 3550 and be very happy in my house. So it all depends on the customer you're talking to and their particular use case and how close to the absolute maximum of performance I can get. But the overall thought process applies across the entire lineup. With
Yeah.
that kind of, I think that's kind of
Yeah.
how I've always saw it.
That would be accurate. And when you go up to a 5,000 lumen laser 4K,
Uh-huh.
we now have these short throw
Uh-huh.
lenses that we put on there.
Mhm.
So you can now sit inside a flight simulator where you have
Mhm.
multiple edge pieces with the same kind of color accuracy we're talking about.
Mhm.
So we've actually started putting these into military things
Mhm.
where you can again put 3 or 4 of these short throw 4K lenses,
Mhm.
projectors, without for less than the cost of a Honda Accord.
Exactly. Now, the other thing that's kind of nice is with DLP and a lot of systems is the sealed, a lot of stuff is sealed and it's more compact and all this. So what are you showing here, Bob, in this particular image?
Okay, so this is something that you never see, and we reserved this for you for this thing because a lot of old projectors have filters,
Mhm.
and like air conditioning, your air conditioning system filters inevitably need to be cleaned. They need to be changed. They're just a maintenance item. So when we flipped to lasers 10 years ago, when we introduced our first one,
Mhm.
we did the normal protection. But what we found is that with laser projectors, if a dust particle hits a laser beam somehow, it
Mhm.
turns what I call into molten goo, and it just goes blank. Okay. And so a lot of companies are on their first generation of laser projectors. We're about on our 5th or 6th. And over
Mhm.
time, what we've done is we say, well, we need to do a better job sealing dust here, sealing dust here, sealing dust
Mhm.
here. So this is our latest completely sealed laser solid state engine. So the orange part is where the DLP chip is. You can see heat pipes in there. So because everything is semiconductor based, we can use the same technology that Apple uses in their MacBook Pros to be able to get
Mhm.
all the heat out of that Intel chip and put it
Mhm.
wherever it needs to go without having giant fans. We've kind of
Mhm.
done the same thing with our laser engines, and it's
Mhm.
awesome because
Mhm.
uh, it eliminates not only the filter, it eliminates any dust contamination getting anywhere in. And I think if I've got an image on the next one, we actually now test every single laser projector, yes, with a dust torture test. And
Mhm.
so I happen to have my Apple Series 6 watch, which has the IP5X certification for dust. It's also waterproof, and I can go kayaking with it and all kinds of other things. But one of the dust proof tests, it's the same one that we use for the watch, is we put in here. Every single BenQ laser projector today sold has an IP5X or IP6X rating, meaning we put it in these dust chambers, test it for 20 years of dust. Uh, it has to pass before we actually ship the product. And of course,
Mhm.
sometimes we put our competitors in there to see what happens as well, but we don't
Mhm.
disclose that, how
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
how they do.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of having of DLP and laser systems together is because you can seal it all. The
Yep.
worst thing, like we're talking a lot, we talk a lot about home theater, but a lot of projectors are sold for classrooms, conference rooms, boardrooms, and stuff like that. And maintenance, IT people hate maintenance. They don't want to go in there and change filters and take it down and swap bulbs and do all and worry about that. They go in environments where it may not be the cleanest environment in the world. museums, they don't have time to, they get dusty because they're not going to be climbing up into the rafters to clean the filters on
Right.
a museum or in a hotel or anything like that. So there's a benefit to a consumer because it's maintenance free, and there's a benefit on the professional side, whether it's an IT guy or a custom integrator or someone who's doing conference rooms, museums, and concerts, that the fact you don't have to deal with that type of stuff. So there is some advantages to this because, like you said, the goal is to replace a TV. And the second they
Yeah.
think it's going to be more maintenance, because my TV that's on my wall, I don't do anything with it. I don't clean any filters. I don't do
Right.
anything. Every once in a while, I may wipe off the dust on the front of the plastic front,
Yeah.
and that's about it. And people see projectors, and the first thing they think is maintenance. And the second you get rid of the maintenance, that is a big thing, especially when you're getting into people who are putting them in, in conference rooms or in office spaces, because they think about that stuff because they don't want to get back up there and change bulbs and lenses and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And Poway School District, they actually require 2 people to touch a projector because somebody on one union has to go into a ladder and the other guy from the IT union has to be able to actually take the projector off and touch it. So you have 2 different people. So it is a real hassle. And a lot of projectors in college campuses and churches require a lift to get to.
exactly,
And
exactly,
that's so
exactly.
it's designed. We're more of an engineering company than a marketing company, but
Mhm.
they're very designed for a long-term ease of use.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Now, the other thing too that was kind of interesting was smarts. So we want to talk about smarts. And some of the first smart projectors you guys launched were more for business applications. I remember actually doing a review on one of the first Android business projectors, and there was a lot of advantages to that thing. For example, wireless presentations. I could actually
Yeah.
put the presentation, the PowerPoint, on a USB and just stick it into the projector. I could cast to it. And there was all of these things to make it more productive. So talk a little bit about how smart and why you guys decided to add smart to business stuff, because that's actually kind of a good conversation.
So in a classroom, you mentioned a classroom, classrooms all use projectors, right? Over the last few years, they're all switching to interactive flat panels. And the interactive flat panel is basically a piece of glass. And then in front of that glass is an Android computer that runs various types of whiteboarding software. And in the last few years, there's been a huge amount of innovation to be able to do more things, including like wireless presentations. There's now like cloud collaboration or being able to access your Google Drive or your network drive or all kinds of things, right? So we realize that there's all this innovation going on here, almost like the PDA, when you had your PDA separate from your phone and then they merged together. We did the same thing. We simply took all of that ecosystem, put it in the inside of the projector, and now all of that ability to use mobile devices is built into the projector. All the ability to cast, like what you're talking about, is built into the projector. The ability to type in and look up a web address without having your PC and having to go through cables and other things like that is now built into the projector. So, some people are still going to use their notebooks, but now you have an option, and that's changing the behavior pattern in both schools and classrooms. And it also makes it easier for a teacher, whether they have a projector or a flat panel. Maybe one room has one room has another one. They can use the same interface and the same system without having to learn 2 different interfaces for 2 different technologies.
Exactly.
So
And we've all been in the meeting room with the HDMI cable hanging down from the ceiling, and someone says, "Oh, can I see it?" And they have to take the cord, and then you have to unplug it from your laptop and plug it into their laptop, and let me share my screen. It's a complete hassle, you know.
yeah,
And 90%, and being able to walk in with your phone and say, "Oh, let's look at that email document," or who has the presentation? It's on this USB. Let's stick it in the back of the projector. Oh, and let's look up the website. Let's, instead of me having to hold on, let me see the cord. I'll plug it in and show it to you. Being able to do it all from the projector just gives you a lot more. It gives you a lot more options. Like I said, some people are old-fashioned; they may want to do that. But if you're trying to set up a new room and just knowing I can just hang, long as I have good wireless and I can plug this thing and it's hanging from the ceiling, I'm good to go. You know how much it costs to retrofit a room or to run that HDMI cable out of the way from up there all the way down the wall, all the way back down, back into the conference room, and back below to the under the carpet, and back up to the conference room table. That is a lot of money. That costs more than the projector. If there was one on the ceiling and I didn't want to see the and I didn't want to see the wire, and I want to connect it to my laptop, that cost, just installing that can cost you double what the projector costs. So
Yeah,
so a lot of times it's worth it to get a smart projector just to reduce the labor costs of getting the signal from the laptops to the projector. And we'll talk about another solution you guys have at the very
yeah.
end. Actually, we could talk about that now. Now, you have another solution for those people who want to do that, and they go, oh my God, I'm trying to retrofit a projector in a room, and I have all these guys with laptops. And how much do you want to charge me to wire that to the thing? $600-700. You have another solution. So can you talk about what this guy is right here?
Well, we just refit our conference room before this came out, and it was $4,000 to cut the hole in the concrete and put the
Yeah.
for two HDMI cables that had the same problem that your prior guests were talking about before. So,
Yeah,
so
exactly,
it turned out to be
exactly.
more expensive even after that. So this is InstaShow. This eliminates that. So if you're in a conference room, there's post COVID-19, there's three things that you want to worry about, right? One is social distancing, right?
Mhm.
The second one is simplicity. You have a fixed amount of time, and this is in Toyota's meeting rooms over in France, because they have a fixed amount of time for every meeting, and you cannot waste it because the next meeting is right behind you. And then third is security, because what happens in that meeting room has to stay in that meeting room. And so InstaShow basically is designed for those three things. It's a receiver that goes on the display, and it can actually be mounted on a projector mount upside down, unlike our number one competitor that also starts with a B. It basically can hang anywhere on the display. 45 feet away, you simply take this little button that's there, and it'll plug into a notebook. But it will also, since a lot of your customers, AV integrators, plug into a Blu-ray player, plug into a digital camera, plug into a spectrum analyzer, anything with an HDMI output, it will plug into and wirelessly broadcast. So we have labs actually where they hook this up to a digital microscope and send it to a central projector when they want to share their specimens or their findings or something like that.
Mhm.
It's super simple. You just plug it in, it sets up an encrypted link in about 6 or 7 seconds, and then the light turns green, you tap it, and the encrypted signal goes to the receiver, and up on the screen is your image. So yes, you can share your display. It'll also work with mobile devices, with AirPlay and Miracast, and you can switch up to 32 presenters at the same, you can have 32 of these buttons. That's a little overkill, but it just gives you an idea of, if you're doing a scrum and you have 10, 15 people that want to take 2 minutes, you can just instantly switch from each presenter to another presenter.
Yeah, so we reviewed the old version of this. We're gonna do a review on the new one. So if you want to learn more about it, but I just want to point it out. You can cast. The problem is if you have 4 or 5 boardrooms or rooms, Woodstock and Coachella and all these different ones, and you're in there talking about layoffs. You think you're in Woodstock, but you're actually in Coachella, and you cast the wrong thing to somebody else's meeting.
Yep.
Ew. Salaries,
Yep.
staffing, plans, all that type of stuff. So that helps get rid of that. Craig is asking, what is the best home theater projector you have? Is that this one? Is that the HT? Is it HT9060? There's so many projectors
Yes.
in that. Okay.
We're actually sold out of that for a while. So the 5550 is probably the best one that you can buy right now. Or
Okay.
the HT8060, which is on the same chassis but uses a lamp instead of the solid state
Yeah.
peak. So those have the big giant,
Mhm.
I call them the NFL sideline lenses,
Yeah.
when the guys do that.
Yeah.
So huge lenses for considering for a projector, and they're all basically handmade.
Yeah, I've been trying to poke Jeffrey to get a sample for review to refresh my memory, because I think Art was the one that had a chance to play with it. So Jeffrey,
Yep.
when you get one, you better send me one to play with. All right. So the last thing you want to talk about, and it's really important, we just talked about smarts. And you guys were the first ones to bring in all of these smart things. That was a big thing. Android Smart for Business. But smarts
Right.
are also important when it comes to to home theater and in the regular world. So now you guys are announcing several models or a couple of models that are powered by Android TV. Can you talk about some of the benefits of that?
Yeah, so the easiest, I talked about simplicity with the wireless presentation in the meeting room. Well, why don't we do that in the house, right? Why don't we have a single remote control that enables you to not only turn on your projector, but also access your content? And the simple thing to say, hard thing to do. So what we did is we used our expertise in the Android operating system and the integration of all the different technologies to be able to put this together. So now on the mainstream home theater projectors that we are currently selling today, you'll now have the opportunity to layer in and get an I version that enables you to, with a single button click on your remote control, watch the NBA finals
Mm-hmm.
or a TED talk, or in my case, the 477 episodes of Psych, where you're looking for the pineapple at each one on the Amazon Prime streaming service. So a lot of people have two remotes, like you might have an Apple TV remote, you might have a TV remote. You see this in the televisions where you're starting to see smart TVs. BenQ is an innovator where we're actually putting this same technology into our projectors, the same way you might want to have on your TV. Reduces the size of your rack, makes it simple to use, and it doesn't require a PhD of programming to be able to make work.
I'm looking at putting a projector in my bedroom, and one of the things I want, it has to be smart, because all I want to do is just get it up on the ceiling or get it or put it on a stand and drop the screen down. And I don't want to have all I have to want to worry about is getting power to it, because everything else is sent to it via Wi-Fi. No more, and I don't have to have multiple remote controls that I have to show my wife how to use, or my family how to use, and it just makes the world a better thing. Having it built in means one remote rules them all. Most people, I'm technically savvy, but I would much rather just have one remote to do everything. Access the settings and find my YouTube. I don't want to reach for multiple remotes. I don't want multiple remotes on my coffee table. And that's one of the benefits of having it built in, right, Bob?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, do we buy packaged media now for movies, or do we stream it?
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of projectors just still are in the mindset of being passive devices. They just give me content, versus reality is we have a computer in these things. We have memory, we have the ability to do this. We can make it easier and a better experience for somebody to be able to access streaming video. Maybe you want to use a Blu-ray for some movies, but you know what? If you want to watch a rerun of Christmas Carol or some of these movies that are on the screen here, it's just easy
Yeah.
and fast.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like for example, I have all of my 4K Blu-rays of the movies that I'm really hardcore. But last week we were talking to the kids about Bill and Ted's.
Yeah.
What's the first Bill and Ted? The kids don't really care that the Bill and Ted is being streamed and it's slightly compressed, but they don't care. It's Bill and Ted, okay? So they're not. So there's so I just wanted to get Bill and Ted right now because we were talking about the new Bill and Ted, which we looked at in 4K, and they said, "Who's Bill and Ted?" And we go, "Oh my gosh!" So off we went down the content rabbit hole, and that allows you to go back and then revisit all of those classic movies because of the convenience of it all. Now, so Bob, you mentioned that that the new models have that would differentiate. You're going to keep the standard models for those customers that, like me, I have a rack with a Roku and an Apple TV and everything in my theater, so I already have all the smarts built in. So you'll still just have the non-I version for those people that already have those dongles and sources already, right? And then the
Right.
I indicates that there's smarts built in, correct?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about the parallel for televisions, it's the same. Samsung has their generic TV and then they have their smart TV. What's fascinating is BenQ is, I believe, the first one to ever do this. And so we're excited about the thought leadership in the projector business. But a lot of us have those types of televisions at home. It's just really hard to do in a projector versus the giant PCB board on a TV. So our engineers had to work really long and hard to be able to stuff it all in there without actually changing anything in the case. And it actually, when you get it and you use it, it's not quite as mind-blowing as when you first got your first smartphone and you didn't have to dial a phone and you didn't have to go through these 3 steps to make a phone call, you know, but it's so easy. After you've had one of these, it's almost impossible to go back and ever think about buying a dumb projector ever again.
Okay, so real quickly, before we let these guys go, let's talk about the difference between the three, because the customer that these are designed for varies, hence the reason why there's 3 projectors. The HT 3550, who is that customer? Who is that designed for?
That's your home theater customer. So hence the words HT. And because the home theater customer with sites like Projector Reviews, you know, they look at all of these small, minute details, right? It's sort of like when you're watching a food show and you're seeing one of these judges break down a dish, and there are things in there that you never even thought about as a normal person that eats regular food when you hear all of the things that they do. So this is our foodie projector line, if you will.
Yeah, and it has a dynamic iris for the better black, and I think it's one of the first. It has dynamic iris, right? I think it's one of the least expensive projectors I've ever seen that has that type of capability. So great
It's
blacks, accurate color.
that exactly, and this one will actually do the same color space that's in the Cinemark down below. So there's a famous story amongst TI where I used to work where they put the first digital projector up there and they said, well, it's perfect color. And all the producers hated it because it didn't look like Panavision. And they like, no, we want it to look weird like the Panavision colors. That's my paraphrase of it. But this projector is designed around that exact same color space from the ground up. So it's designed to assume that there's a dark theater and that you're a foodie projector connoisseur to get one of these things.
Yeah. So it has all the tricks that we were talking about. As you spend more money, they start adding things like cinema/color filters to whiten the colors. They add things like dynamic iris. And normally, if you look at the features that are built into this thing, it's pretty amazing. Now, as you step up, the one thing that I wish that I need in my room is horizontal and vertical lens shift, optical, horizontal, and vertical lens shift. And I'm willing to pay additional for the one above this one just to get that. Okay, so that's an important thing. Now let's talk about the this is more about that dark room. I'm concerned with blacks. Color is everything guy. What is the TK850 for?
TK850 is the 4K version of the sports room. You know, if you want to watch the Super Bowl or you want to watch your team on a 125-inch screen and you don't have the option to turn that room dark because you have teenage girls or something like that, you know, this projector is designed to be able to be bright, easy to see, and be able to effectively fight off ambient light. So we retuned the color palette because now we're assuming instead of a dark room, we're going to have other light come in, and then we can do some tricks with the colors and everything like that to be able to compensate it so that in that room, the picture looks perfect. Now, if you were to take that projector into your super dark home theater room, you're going to say, I'm not sure I like this as much as the other one. But you know, a lot of people in the Midwest have basements, and those basements have windows, and they don't shut the windows off. They kind of want a little bit of ambient light in the room. This is perfect for that.
Yeah. Well, Jason Russell was just here from SI, and he had a great analogy. The right tool for the job. And what he did was he said, okay, say you have a race, and he had a picture of a 4-wheel drive truck, like a big old Dodge Ram, and a Viper. And he goes, we're gonna have a race. Pick your ride. Now, and someone says, well, of course you're gonna pick the I'm gonna pick the Dodge Viper, and he goes, okay, it's an off-road race. You know what I mean? And you picked the wrong vehicle, right? So it's the job. You have to look at it's where you're gonna put it. In a dark room, and the HT system products are going to be the TK product. It's just what it's designed for. In a bright room, you're going to look at the TK and say, oh my God, that looks better. Because now the advantage that you were getting from the HT, you can't appreciate because of the ambient light in the space. And that big boost in brightness is far more of a benefit. So it is about where you're going to use it. So one may be a 4-wheel drive and one may be a sports car. And depending on where the race is, depends on which one you pick. And now we
Exactly.
have the other one, because what one was about home theater and one was about the sports guy. What is the TH series for, the TH8 685? Who is that for?
So same basic audience as the TK850i, the middle one, but the resolution on this one is the 1080p chip, 1080p resolution.
Okay, so the other
So
two are
it's designed.
4K. The other two are 4K.
Yep.
This is 1080p. Okay.
Exactly. So a lot of times, I remember I gave an old projector of mine that had 720p to a friend, and he put it up in his brand new home that had a media room, and he'd never seen a projector before, and he thought, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing, a 120-inch screen, and you didn't even have a screen, you put it on his wall. So this is basically, if you think about it, almost the W1070 about 6 years ago was the best-selling model in North America. This is its current iteration of that particular version. It's designed to be the all-around 1080p projector, perfect for TV, perfect for streaming, perfect for watching sports. It's not going to do the 4K resolution.
Yeah, and is this one of your more gaming ones that has one of the bigger gaming advantages as well?
Yeah, and that's the thing, particularly for certain types of games. A projector is never going to be fast enough, because we make the world's best gaming monitors over on the Zowie side, where it's 1 millisecond. But there's a lot of games that these projectors make it a lot more fun to play, like your console games and other things like that, where it's not 1 millisecond, but it's much faster than the 40 or 50 milliseconds you would have on your traditional projector. So this is
Yeah.
one of our first projectors that's designed to be able to close that gap to where I wouldn't call it professional gaming, but it's fun
It's
and
competitive. It'll
it's
keep you.
competitive.
It'll help you hang with your boys. He has a
Yeah.
TV, you have a projector. You're not at a disadvantage. One thing I do want to point out too that people don't really understand when it comes to game lag on a projector. Every time you add a level of processing, it's like it has to take a longer journey. All right. People say, well, this is HD. Well, actually, HD is helpful when it comes to its lag when you play most gaming systems, because most gaming systems are outputting at their higher frame rate gaming at HD. And HD to HD means I don't have to do the 4K, the HD to 4K up conversion, which adds time. Okay. So a lot of times, that's why if you look at the ones that are really fast everybody uses what's called a Bonar lag tester. A Bonar lag tester tests in HD. So the HD ones are always going to do better on a Bonar lag tester than a 4K, because it has one less step it has to do. All 4K projectors have to display everything at 4K. So the lag tester comes in at HD, it skips all the process except for the HD to 4K up conversion. The only
Right.
time that a 4K TV could hang with a HD projector is you have to keep the resolution the same. If I have a 4K game playing back on a 4K projector, I can skip the up conversion, and the game lag goes down. But most of you guys are gaming in HD. Period. I don't care if you have a brand new a current PlayStation or a current Xbox, and this is going to give you advantage over even a 4K TV, because the 4K TV has to upscale. So if you want kind of an edge, a lot of times the projectors actually on an HD game respond faster than a 4K TV, and you will see them before they see you, and you can kill
Yes.
them before they kill you. So those are
Exactly.
some things that we have to talk about. Eventually, when we have a ton of 4K games playing back at 4K 60, and the computers can do it really effectively and do beautiful ray tracing, and these big mega PlayStations and Xboxes come out, that conversation will change. But right now, that's one of the reasons why having an HD based projector for a gaming projector keeps the cost down and makes it faster. And that's why this projector is one of the leading selling projectors out there. All right. So that was something that I wanted to get across when it came to projectors. So Bob, anything else you'd like to talk mention before I let you go? We went a little bit over, but we have an hour break between the next two sessions.
We covered the major topics. The thing that's fascinating, if you think about 2 years ago or 3 years ago in projectors, there wasn't a lot of changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's same old, same old.
Mm-hmm.
So today, now almost everything is changing. The resolutions are changing, the light sources are changing, the front ends and how we get content is changing. There's so many things that are changing. You know, it's a very exciting time to be in the projector business and to be able to bring these innovations. And it's a good reason for people to look at maybe replacing their old projector that had 1080p resolution that's 4, 5, 6 years old, instead of buying a new lamp. For not too much more money, they can get a nice, great looking 4K projector with a feature they'd never thought of before.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a great performance at a that punches way above their price points, definitely check out the BenQ lineup of projectors. But we'd like to thank BenQ for coming and Bob for coming and going over their lineup. So we'll talk to you guys soon.